Peace and love. It's the master, Jason Elm Street Williams, live in the flesh. And long story short, we're gonna give a quick breakdown of the movie or TV show Underground. I thought it was great for what it is, and if we have, this is why it's very imperative for us to know our Black history, our African history, our American history, and this history and the story period of humanity outside of what is given to us in school and in the church and in the media. So I'm going to start off with the show Underground. It starts off with the Bloodhounds. It talks about the dog attacks. So we know that the slave master had basically the police, which were the slave catchers, have bloodhounds and dogs of what they do today when the police catch us and they sick canines and dogs on us. Okay? So they're teaching us that again, which we have to remember. This needs to be the last slave movie we see, because clearly we see that the slaves had knowledge of self. They had not knowledge of self, they had knowledge of the land. They still were able to have herbs and spices and foods. And then when we look at the slave quarters, it resembles the projects, it resembles the hood, or certain apartment structures on how they were built. It reminded me, said, wow, we think of the slave quarters as just one little bitty shack. But no, some of the presidents, they had hundreds of slaves. It was an actual city, in a sense. You know, it was a living factory, what the slaves were. So let's break it down as far as the birth goes. So think for a second. We'll be right back. You already know. So they were talking about the Ohio River. And the cracker was talking about he said it was inhumanly possible for a human or a person to get free 600 miles. So I wanted to look that up, because it's like, wow, did people really travel 600 miles to get free? You know, that's one of the things that I could say out loud that I might not have researched, because that's pretty crazy if people walked and traveled 600 miles, you know, and just alone with no shoes and running through swamps and hiding. And wow, it's incredible. And it's inspiring to me to let me know where I come from and where we've been and who we truly are. You know, we study ancient Egypt, we study Africa, we study Atlantis, Lemuria, Mars, Nibiru, and all those crazy things. But I find it inspiring to see the true story of America, you know, and it's just the first episode. So I looked at the birth, you know, how the woman, I was like, wow, like, there was nobody there but us in the slave quarters when the woman was giving birth. You know, that has to be a difficult thing, you know, for any woman, I'm sure, is giving childbirth, from what I know, you know. And so I would say, I wrote down no doctors, you know, imagine the slaves giving birth. And then they said, quiet down, because if the master hears you, he gonna come out tripping. Might kill somebody. This is facts. You know, and then so they talked about John Hawke, which was a white abolitionist who he talks about Dred Scott. So in one of the opening scenes, it shows John Hawke. He's in Washington, D.C., and he's in front of one of the monuments that look like an ancient Greek temple or ancient Egyptian temple or Atlantic temple, Atlantis. It shows him giving a speech about how are Europeans gonna judge free slaves when they left Europe because they felt they were being persecuted. So what's the difference of a freed slave saying, hey man, I'm getting persecuted, I'm not being treated justice or humane, I want to be free. And so there were white abolitionists that did put their neck out on the line for freedom. Now, we'll see how the story continues to see if they did anything shady, you know. But we're going to continue the story. And so nobody was listening. And then a brother by the name of William Still, who was a true brother from Philadelphia. Now, William Still created the Anti-Slavery Society, and he was a big-time Charlie in Philadelphia. He was a black abolitionist. So they're showing you the dynamic of so-called white abolitionists and black abolitionists, which I would say today. I see white abolitionists out there, you know. People know where I stand with a lot of things, but at this time code and this frequency and dimension that we're living in, all of us are going to have to build together for those who want to be free, regardless of your color, ethnicity, gender, whatever. You know, some of us want to be free and live in love and happiness. And clearly, Underground is showing us that. It's showing us that there's a way to be free. So if they got free, that lets us know that there's something else out there without dying and killing yourself or anything spooky. I'm telling you, and I'm saying, I know and I believe that there's a way to get free, and that there's something more magical here that exists in this dimension. They call it a planet, they call it America, Russia, Japan, but these are names of continents that those who control the language and reality are giving us. I'm saying that that's why they would have a navy to make sure that certain people can't travel to certain oceans and certain things, certain lands. I guarantee you that certain lands are magical. I already know. Eat the magic mushroom. So we're back on equal rights. So we're still, seems like we're fighting, but it's the same love. Whether it's a white abolition or black abolitionist, is people coming together for a common cause of good. And I see that now. I'm seeing the dynamic of the Donald Trump fiasco. These are distractions and things, because at the end of the day, it reminds me of when I was in college in, what was his name? When Bush stole the election. Was it John Kerry won? And I remember all the white kids, because, you know, there's not too many black kids on the university campuses outside of the athletes. They were just cheering, and I remember the Republican kids were crying, and we went to sleep, and I remember waking up the next day and they said Bush had won. They changed it, and it was just a fiasco. And even with Arnold Schwarzenegger and all that out here in California, and that's when I started digging. I was like, man, this is all bullshit. It's already planned. I mean, if you run a society or a government or a hood or a gang or a business, you're going to keep certain people in, certain secrets, certain functions. So when the American society, you're just subjects, just like they show you in Greek mythology and other things and more. You're just subjects of a queen, of the rulers, and we're only given a certain amount of information, but we think that we're actually involved, but that's just to make you play the game to feel like you're important, when in actuality the shit is all fucked up. But we use these underground things because that's what it's all about. We see a lot of brothers doing the Hollywood thing with the underground movement, which I understand getting economics is great, but that's when we talked about talking to Dr. Brother Phil Valentine, you know, back in the day. You know, Dr. Phil Valentine, the brothers like Bobby Hemmett, Ashwa Kwesi, you know, underground. You know, once we go Hollywood with it, it's the same thing as hip-hop. And that's what you're doing. So when you come out to Hollywood and giving away all the conscious information and playing around with the Jews and making money off of things, what you're doing is you're creating you're resurrecting things that no other person would do. So we're going to talk about the Masons as well. We're going to talk about how the house niggas, you know, will fuck with the brothers from the Revolutionary One to escape. We're going to see how that plays out, because some house niggas say they want to escape, but then they might say at the end, right before you escape, tell master the whole master plan. And you see this happening in the so-called conscious community too. Take heed. So you see the brother with the top hat, the house nigga, you can see that he's a house nigga from the way he dresses. He has a very nice garment on. He has his top hat. He might even have a cane, you know. And so we understand those who learn about the top hat, study that, learn about, like we said, outside of the Bible, Quran, Torah, there are other teachings that the world goes by, you know. And if you want to just remain a regular citizen, that is fine. But if you want to be sovereign, let's keep going. Also in the show, I noticed that the white woman was getting jealous of the black woman. Now, she was light-skinned. I used to watch her on Full House. I always had a crush on her. So she's on that show, beautiful goddess and great actress. And clearly she's mixed, because the white man, even though he had slaves, he was fucking on the black woman. And the white woman knew this because they were having babies, you know. And so one of the scenes, she talks about putting the black kid, the young black boy, on the block, and he'll be a good nigga. And so the young goddess, I forget her name in the show, but she was on Full House. She took a beating and lashes for her younger brother because, you know, we learn about how they used to beat the kids, rape the kids, and all that stuff as well. So it's a great reminder of where we come from. Like I said, having the master's degree in education, it's really a wake-up call to really see how the education system was deliberately built for white people to succeed and black people to remain slaves, you know. And that's one great thing I saw, is that we forget that the slaves created their households. So brothers did have knowledge. Sisters had knowledge of being doctors, herbalists, shamans, teachers, witch doctors, which you would call preachers and stuff, who have a connection to which the cosmos, the gods, whatever you want to call them, you know. So I find that amazing. And then also when you see the slaves, when they're standing next to the master, they're all at bay. They know a certain position to stand, because that's why they're called the master, because they're masons, you know. Much love to all my gods and all that. Peace. But at the end of the day, we learned that the slave master had knowledge beyond the Bible, because when the one of the brothers with the one eye, he was on he was T.I.'s uncle on ATL, and he was on Whitney Houston's movie with Angela Bassett, Waiting to Exhale. And he comes in one of the scenes, and his wife is reading the Bible. She said, "Baby, I got something for John for you." So that's letting us know that that was, of course, the first book that the slave master allowed us to really read in the open. And it was something that when we got off the plantation and got in the house, it was something for us, because it was daily work. So now we understand why the Bible was passed down for love and something to give us power. But we now know that the origins of it. And so now we understand when he came into the house and his wife's about to read him the Bible verse, because that shows him the love to make him feel better. He's like, "I got something else for us to read, baby." And he shows her the instructions on how to get free. But clearly I think the brother can't read, because we know it was illegal for the slaves to read at one point. And if you got caught reading, you were murdered. Facts. So she sung a song to him, which is great, because that's how we put it in codes. Just like we're giving away hip-hop, just like we see brothers in Hollywood giving away the super conscious shit. You're doing the same thing, man. We already know what that is. Out here, raised and born and raised in the Golden State Warrior Village of California. So when we see outsiders come and do this shit, it's like, wow, bro, we've been working so hard to be independent and underground and not be Hollywood. And for someone to come and do that, it's like, wow, bro. It's a shame. So let's get back to the underground. And we know that this week is the eclipse, but we're talking about Philadelphia as well with brother Katt Williams. Now, when he calls out the Illuminati, or he even says a brother he's playing with the Kevin Hart, who comes from Philadelphia, gets jumped, but dealing with Benny Siegel, who we know might be anti-Illuminati, because he doesn't fuck with Hove right now. at least in the public eye, on that level, like they used to with Rockefeller. Peace to the gods. So anytime the brother mentions or gets out of line with the Illuminati, all this shit happens. So we went, I studied, okay, 4 cases, 1 in California, false imprisonment. 4 black women said that he held them at gunpoint. Second, he assaulted a pool clerk. Now let's start being specific, because they're always specific when they do this. Gun, woman, false imprisonment, assault, pool, clerk, police, battery suspect, an LA driver. LA driver says he punched him. So now he's wanted in LA. Key terms, people. Just like they do when certain things are happening. Right after the Black History Month. Everyone forgot about the Beyonce and all that, right? Distractions. But they're teaching us something. This is why we have to watch, if we stay in tune. And for those people who don't watch TV and watch this, they're not watching. But for those who do. So Katt Williams. So now they got him on terrorist threats. They raided his house. Said they found guns and marijuana. That's it? Are you serious? You can have a personal opinion on any person, but you don't know that person. That's what they do in Hollywood, you know. And so the cops raided his house in Georgia. Learn about Dr. York in Georgia. Beanie Siegel, Philadelphia. So now, we're out of Katt Williams. And I'll say these words: the Matrix, the Fallen, Atlantis, the Stars, the Big Thunder, the Power, the Master, the Nova Supreme, Ultra Mega Supreme. And so, back to that, they also mentioned baseball. I noticed that the brother in the scene with the shotgun and the horse, the slave master, or he was a slave catcher. He was a manipulator. He was a devil. That's a whole nother story. But he showed his son the baseball, but he was looking at the brother. He was like, oh, the Yankees were bragging about it. It just got invented. Now we know baseball became the American sport, and we know that Negroes, we know we started all that. We know we started them games and taught them, and they stole it. Why do you think that the Negro leagues are done? The Negro leagues would be way better. Why don't I ask for an investor, help me, let's open up a Negro league again, you know? But that's a whole nother story. So they were gonna beat the young brother. He was like a elementary school type age, because he was hyper. And she said, oh, he didn't mean to get in the sugar, that's why he's all hyper. So then we learned about sugar. Said, wow, some people say like sugar's a drug, and they put that in our foods to make us act a certain way. So they say that chemically, us as melanated beings are African, black, Moorish, native people to America, indigenous, that we react differently to certain foods and chemicals compared to the European, and that the European body is created differently to absorb certain minerals and chemicals other than us. And so that's another thing on why they changed their diet on the slave quarters. Hopefully they talk about that. Clearly we saw that the woman had herbs to heal the brothers, and we see love on the slave quarters because we needed each other. And it was all about getting free. So basically I saw that the brothers who were getting free were kept constantly dropping that, man, God ain't on our side. If there's a God, because everyone would be like, well, what do you think God says? Well, God ain't on our side if this is going on. The slaves were saying that because the brothers who wanted to get free knew that. They understood that Bible, and we don't even have to mention the book. They clearly said that. They clearly said that there's something else. Because if this is the so-called Almighty God, no. Let's get free. Okay? Facts. So at the end, I also saw with the previews, one of the brothers with the one eye, he said, God never said in the Bible we were going to be free in heaven. Once again, he said, God never said that we were going to be free in heaven. Let's get free. So we see a common understanding that just like in today's society, when you see a lot of brothers and sisters and you might come up to them and give them knowledge, show them the facts, and they'll be like, wow, Jason, amazing, that's true. But then they'll turn back and say they go into church, still believe in certain deities and worship certain deities. I just say much love, and for those of us who do want to get free, that's when we learn about studying different deities. We were raised with the whole biblical Jesus story. If you're in the Middle East, the Allah story. If you're in Asia, the Buddha, and you see the indoctrination. And so because we learned that other people, wherever the European went, they got enslaved too. You know what I'm saying? Their land got stripped. So one thing I noticed, I said, man, there's no way in the world that all black people came from Africa on slave ships. We're going to end that right now. It's just impossible. Clearly, there were black people in America prior to slavery. And hopefully we can see some of the things that they might drop. Because generation after generation, you wouldn't have that knowledge unless you were already here. And I think that's one thing that they don't show in these slave movies. Because basically, I don't know if they're going to get into Africa, but I'm seeing that they're still painting a picture of us as just slaves. They just came out with the gods of Egypt. They're still not showing us, and that's why it's up to us to make these movies, our own movies. They can make their own type of movies about us if they want to. That's what they do, and that's fine. That's why it's up to us. We don't need Hollywood. We can distribute our things ourselves, work together, even if brothers and sisters don't want to work together. And it's not going to be a set up thing, like set up debates and certain things to where we know it's all rigged just for a certain reality to be manifested, So, underground, we're keeping it underground still. Definitely not Hollywood, Jason Elm Williams, always know that you are the master of your universe. Peace and love, and let's stay tuned. One love.